Hello everyone, welcome back to Threpticon. Today we're going to talk about Plato's Republic, Book 2. He talks about the healthy city versus what he calls the feverish city. So let's discover what Plato has to say about this. So I just got two pictures here, one showing a healthy environment, people are working together, they're calm. And then on the right we have the feverish city. We got these people going to war with one another, causing pain, destruction, death. All right. So this is a thought experiment, talking about this kind of ideal city. Well, the Republic's kind of about that, okay? It's about an ideal state. And this is Socrates speaking. And perhaps you have a good point, said I, and we really should investigate it and not hold back. So let us first consider the manner of life of people who are provided for in this way, that is, in the ideal city. Will they not make bread, wine, clothing, shoes? And having built their houses, they will work for the most part naked and unshod in summer. That is, barefoot. They don't need clothes in the summer. And in winter they will be clothed and shod well enough. They will be fed on meal and flour from the barley and wheat they are provided with, baking and kneading noble cakes and loaves, which they serve up on some reeds or clean leaves, as they recline on rustic beds strewn with yew and myrtle, feasting themselves and their children, then drinking their wine with garlands on their heads as they sing the praises of the gods, delighting in one another's company, and not begetting children beyond their resources to support them, being wary of poverty and war. So there's a lot of interesting things here in this paragraph. So in this ideal city, people are working part of the year outside, completely naked, and then they're in the winter, they're kept warm. And this is their diet. They're eating a grain-based diet, okay? Meal, so flour and ground up grains, okay, barley and wheat that they're baking and kneading loaves and things out of them. And they're eating them on clean, sort of biodegradable plates there on reeds or very clean leaves. And then their bed is also kind of sort of a clean place, so they're they're breathing clean air, they're eating clean food, they're living just a happy, clean life, and they're having children, they're pious, they're religious, they're doing all that sorts of things. And then going on, um, Socrates keeps talking about this ideal city. What do you say is true? Because the guy he's talking with, Glaucon, says, "Oh, isn't this life sort of flavorless, without fun?" And he said, "Well, what you say is true. I'd forgotten they would also have relish, like seasoning, let's say, salt, of course, olives and cheese too, and they will boil up onions and greens as people do in the countryside. Um, and we shall also provide them with desserts, I suppose, of figs, pulses, and beans. And they will roast myrtle berries and acorns by the fire, sipping their wine in moderation. And so will they live out their lives in peace and health. And when, as is likely, they die in old age, they will bequeath another such life to their descendants." So here he's talking about their dietary practices. So this is what we would term a vegetarian diet, all right? There's inclusion of cheese. It's not the healthiest. I mean, they're drinking wine. I find it interesting that he's basically saying, of course they're having desserts, of course they're having sweets. In our modern culture, we associate sweet with bad, but for the ancient people, sweet was good. Sweet was the best thing there was. Sweet was God itself, all right? Of course they're eating sweets. By golly, they are. And this sounds like a great. I'll make this, I'll try to make this, grind up figs and pulses, lentils and beans. Just make sort of um, a sweet bean dish, I mean, what's better than that? Um, and then he's saying they live out their lives in health, and then they die in old age. And then they repeat the cycle for the future generations who also live in a healthy way. So now we're talking about a negative city. We were talking about an ideal city. Now we're talking about this feverish city. Okay, this city that's obsessed with status, with growing its wealth, with consuming. All right. In that case, will our city not need to be made bigger again? Indeed, that healthy city is no longer sufficient. It already needs to be filled out in size with lots of things that are no longer in cities for the sake of necessity, with hunters of all sorts, for instance, imitators too, many of them covered with shapes and colors, many concerned with music, poets too, and those who serve them as rhapsodies, actors, chorus members, and contractors, and artificers of a whole variety of articles for general use, and indeed for female adornment. And so we shall also require more of these agents. Or does it not seem that we shall need people who look after children, wet nurses, beauticians, barbers, and moreover people to make the relishes and cooks? And we shall still need to include swineherds, since there were none in our previous city, because it didn't need them. However, they will need to be included in the city, and they will also need a whole host of other beasts if they are to be eaten. Is that not so? Inevitably. Once we live in this way, will we not also have a requirement for far more doctors than were needed in the previous city? Far more. And presumably our territory, which was once sufficient to feed the population at the time, will then become too small and sufficient no longer. Is that the case? And then basically after this they talk about going to war. So that's the slippery slide of this excessively consuming city. All right, it's filled with all sorts of luxuries. The labor is highly divided, and there's all sorts of animals, right? There's all these pigs and other, as he says, beasts that need to be consumed. So there's people who tend to these animals. You know, they have to be slaughtered. That's what people are eating. They're eating this luxurious food, and they don't have enough space because, I mean, they have to feed all of the food to the animals that they were once eating. So now they don't have space to provide for themselves. So their only option is to go to war and steal land and territory from everyone else. So let's just kind of reassume with summarize what we've seen up to this point. We have the healthy city versus the feverish city. The healthy city, the people work hard, not too hard, they work enough. They enjoy good health their whole life, and they age well. They eat a plant-based diet. Okay, the only non-plant-based food mentioned there was cheese. They eat sweet foods. They eat sweet foods. You got to get that in your head. Sweet is what you want to eat. The feverish city, on the other hand, their lives are more complex. Labor is divided in a very marked manner. They consume more in general. They just consume more of everything, more goods. And they consume more resources than they actually produce. They have an excess of luxury goods circulating around, and they have a meat-heavy diet. And the meat-heavy diet is what leads them to become a military culture, to go to war with others, to kill, to destroy, so they can have more and more and more. And that's that. So thank you all for watching, for following up to this point. And if you have the desire, like, subscribe, and comment. It'll help grow this project here together, in which we talk about veganism, its history, and its future. All right. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.